ओरिजिनली जब AI आया था तो हमने सोचा था कि यार सबसे पहले ब्लू कॉलर जॉब्स रिप्लेस होंगी, फिर वाइट कॉलर जॉब्स पे आएगा, फिर क्रिएटिव्स की तरफ जाएगा, यानी दैट वाज वी अज्यूम कि 10 साल में ही होगा, लेकिन ऐसा हुआ नहीं. मतलब नहीं, अभी पहले क्रिएटिव की जॉब रिप्लेस हुई हैं, फिर यू नो एंड और फिर CFOs की जॉब रिप्लेस हुई है, ब्लू कॉलर तो पहुंचे नहीं है, राइट. तो ये बिल्कुल इंट्यूटिव नहीं है. और किस तरफ जाएगा, इट्स अ वेरी मिलियन बिलियन डॉलर क्वेश्चन.
Rahim, it's a pleasure for me to be hosting this episode of Majlis, of this particular Majlis. Very grateful to Usman for setting this up and giving the opportunity, and for Zafar Saab for agreeing to be here. My name is Ali Hasanain. I'm a professor of economics at LLMs. I'm interested in studying what's happening in the world with the lens of economics. So I teach courses on, for example, the economics of corruption, the economics of the media, market institutions, and I'm building a course right now on the economics of AI. So when I got to talking to these gentlemen, I perhaps got to learn much more than I would in other conversations. And so once we got to talking, Usman suggested this conversation. Zafar Saab is sort of, to people who are in this space, needs no introduction. Is one of the leading people in Pakistan in this space. And Usman has done plenty in IT also. So that's why this conversation made sense to me. If my introduction is pretty simple, I'm an economist. I look at all aspects of the Pakistan economy. But if you guys will please do quick introductions, in particular looking at your backgrounds in CS and AI, and then we'll start the conversation.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I have a degree in electrical engineering, and I have tons of experience. First in the high performance computing, and I've done that in consumer electronics in US, Hong Kong, and France for a few years. And I had an exit or a company, and then an exit in the ad tech AI space in 2017. And I've worked in IIoT, or AI for large power plants and aluminum smelting plants and such for a few years. And now I actually was thinking about retiring a few years ago, just because I had a really fun career. But just when I was about to retire, AI or LLMs came around, and I said, there is no way on earth I want to retire at this point in time. This is way too much fun. And in my opinion, the opportunities are far larger than when electricity first came around, or when internet first came around, or the rise of powerful mobile phones, and so on and so forth. This is far bigger than all of those. So
Wow.
Here I am.
Wow, he just put AI with electricity and internet. Wow.
But with the obviously AI needs both electricity and internet, but it's going to be far bigger than either one of them.
Sure.
Not comparable. Not comparable.
Yeah.
Wow.
So थोड़ा सा introduction ये है कि I'm from Rahim Khan, and so I wasn't sure what I want to do in my life, right? But I was very good in maths. I was very clear that I'm very good at maths. But then maths is all about exams and testing and this and that जो FSC में होता है. I was not enjoying it. लेकिन जब मैं fast आया and I went into computer science, और उस टाइम पे टेलीकॉम का दौर था, तो पहले दिन से ऐसा लगा कि programming is something that I've like this is my thing, you know. I enjoy it. Even if money is not an object, I would program. और उस टाइम पे it was right after post वो 9/11 जो हुआ था, तो jobs बहुत limited थी. आप जैसे कुछ legend मौजूद थे, otherwise तो पाकिस्तान में jobs बिल्कुल ख़त्म हो गई थी. तो उस टाइम पे कंप्यूटर साइंस मैंने पिक की, क्योंकि मुझे था कि यार कंप्यूटर साइंस इज़ द वे टू गो. मुझे आई रियली एंजॉयड. फिर उसके बाद आई डिड माय मास्टर्स इन कंप्यूटर साइंस, साइबर सिक्योरिटी, और देन आई वांटेड टू बिल्ड दिस कंपनी at Tech में AI based company, we wanted to automate the process of exam grading. तो पाकिस्तान में हम लोग FSC जब करके आते हैं तो वो गिट नाप के नंबर मिलते हैं, राइट? तो मुझे था कि इसको ऑटोमेट करना चाहिए. तो in 2012 we launched this software called Irreplaceable, where we applied AI to check paper-based exams for the board of Pakistan, and we did conduct Sindh board ke imtihan and then KPK board ke imtihan and made some money, but then realized that I never want to work with the government again. And that's when I went to the US. वहाँ पे I did an HR software, had my first exit. I lived in the Bay Area for 8 years. My first exit in 2016. Then I built an agentic sort of software to automate hospitality. राइट. सो अगर हम किसी भी होटल में जाएं तो हर चीज़ ऑटोमेट हो चुकी होती है, हर चीज़ चेंज हो चुकी होती है, लेकिन 100 सालों से एक चीज़ जो नहीं चेंज हुई वो टेलीफोन सेट है. राइट. सो टेलीफोन सेट वहाँ पे होता है, उठाते हो और आप कहते हो यार मुझे टॉवल ला दो या जो भी. तो वी वांटेड टू रिप्लेस दैट. So we built a software to sort of an agent. Hey Google, hey Alexa, hey whatever, bring me a towel or change the Wi-Fi or whatever, you know. So we built that, had an exit there. Then I wanted to move to Pakistan, and I sort of thought it through that Pakistan is important. Then what can I do in Pakistan? So realized that services is a good business to be in. So started the services business. Been in services business for now 7 years. We are roughly 2,000 employee company, serving in almost every technology. And recently, I would say 80% of our job requirements. So we have a few products here and there, like 7-8% of our revenue coming from products, but mostly it's services. We sell services to clients who are building disruptive softwares, right? And we are seeing 80% of the demand coming for AI, data science, cybersecurity, anything that has to do with this AI change. And this is this is not just my stats. I was listening to Upwork CEOs also. She was saying that there's 90% of the jobs that are posted on Upwork right now has to do with AI.
Sure.
Right. So this is this change that is happening.
Right. So for the layperson, we started hearing more about AI in 2012 or so. We'd seen signs of, for example, Netflix prediction going back to the mid 2000s. And of course, machine learning has been around, and that space has been around. Artificial intelligence has been around for decades. But for a layperson listening to this, I want to talk about what AI is in essence, and what has happened in the last 15 years that has caused this sort of, this internet or electricity plus moment to emerge. Zafar Sahab, guide us through this.
So, I mean, AI has meant, well before I was born, there was something called AI. In Dartmouth University, they were connecting little pieces of software together and calling them neurons, and they created a very interesting software called Eliza. If you've not seen it, I think you should definitely try it out. Eliza was supposed to be this psychologist that you talk to, and you'd be very shocked as to how much you would get immersed in talking to Eliza if you consider it a psychologist. And this was in 1950s or 1960s technology. No LLMs, no nothing. What you write, it takes specific words out of that and responds to that, and you really feel like you're having a conversation. So this whole talking to a chatbot or LLM, ChatGPT, whatever, is actually can be achieved with far more sleight of hand. There's no brains involved, yet you can have that. So, and some people joke that an if statement in a computer language is AI. Okay, so that could be the beginning. So, and whatever AI achieves, at some point in time, you say, well, of course, this is obvious, but if it could do this, then it would be considered AI. So definition of AI has been changing over the decades. There was once a time when if you could take a room like this one and recognize all the faces, that would truly be AI, because how can you possibly do that? And something called deep learning came around, and it became pretty easy. And basically, it's statistics on top of very large compute power. That's what you can in a nutshell, you can call it that.
So has there been a qualitative change in the last decade, or is it just more compute and more data thrown at a problem?
There's more compute, there's more data available, and there are better algorithms available. So when you combine all of that, it becomes very large, something very large. But something like deep learning and the transformer architecture, there were some interesting papers that were ultimately, if you look at it from the 50,000 feet level, it's basically better algorithms, better methodology of doing things. Essentially, that's what it is.
Okay, so I think I can predict your next answer. And, AI has been described as better predictions. So taking input from the user, a problem that the sensor has detected, and running it by a past repository of patterns to figure out what the right answer is. But Usman, let's think of two counterfactual worlds. Today's software and hardware from 2010
Okay.
versus algorithms from 2010 and today's hardware. Which would you pick to deploy a solution today?
Hardwares of today. And so software has always been ahead of time, right? So like software, there is this thing, growth takes, or I don't know, gates, growth builds and gates take away. I don't remember the exact saying, but
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like Intel gives and Microsoft takes away.
Yeah. That's a phenomenon in tech, you know. Hardware.
Sadly, Intel is not amongst us.
Good for
it's good. It's kind of bare, but not
Yeah.
really. NVIDIA has taken its.
So definitely hardware of today at any point of time.
Okay.
And software of past. That's fine. And so AI has been around. In today's world, it has become a buzzword, and it's compared to electricity because of this new thing that happens where natural language processing is now very, very good. Like the interface has become very easy, essentially, right? So whatever we are doing previously, if this robot know कि यार मुझे इससे क्या चाहिए, तो वो कर देगा मेरे लिए वो काम, right? Communicating to this robot is the programming language that we learn as programmers.
Sure.
To communicate to this, you know. And if I can communicate with natural language, now that is a phenomena. Now the communication is easy. The middleman is not needed. And that's when it has become a thing. Otherwise, it has been a thing in the past too.
Sure. But in at least popular writing, I think I started hearing about it more when big data became a buzzword, also around 2010 or so. And one of the first examples that was given was of Target or Amazon or Netflix starting to predicting what you'll want to buy next or watch next. But thinking back, I remember Microsoft's Clippy in Word or PowerPoint, which used to suggest what you do next. That category of solution seems to be very bracketed within a very small problem set. So if then would work very well for that category of problem. But have we unlocked new categories, Zafar Saab, where it's not just hardware, but we're able to do things differently now?
Yeah, certainly there has been a big rise in algorithms. For instance, deep learning did not exist before 2013. There used to be these competitions where you had to do something better, whether it's predicting faces or classifying faces, or is this a cat or a dog or whatever. These kind of competitions used to happen. I don't know exactly what the competition, but that category of competition. And 1 year, someone came in and did way better than everyone else because they had come up with the concept of deep learning. And that was in 2013. And when that came around, it was all open source. There was a big, massive movement in at least in image processing. Image processing became way, way better. And I think I can't remember the dates, but 2015 or 16, there was this paper written about transformer is all you need or something like that. It's the transformer architecture, the GPT, the T in the GPU, whatever. So that really changed the way people did NLP, natural language processing. And those algorithms and their subsidiaries or derivatives on those algorithms, things are improved. It moved very fast because they were solving big economic problems. There was a lot of money that was being spent. And at the same time, the hardware was getting much better. I don't know exactly when NVIDIA thought of becoming an AI company. It was basically a company that made graphic cards, which made your game playing much better. But the same things could be used to run the CNN, the convolution networks, and those multiplication and addition operations, which is the heart of deep learning. And suddenly, things switched, and I guess you can still play better games on those cards, but you can do a lot more than that.
So is there an intuitive way, Usman, to describe deep learning that someone like me who doesn't know my neural networks from my, I don't know what, from my Bayesian networks, or my Bayesian forecasts, is it worth it for me to engage in some of these terms as a user of AI? Or should I start treating it as a black box that is just good at prediction and try to figure out what solutions I can create just from that?
Right. So which paths would you, like both paths are fine, right? So like you can be a lawyer and just use AI to make better cases and all that, right? So, or you can be an AI engineer to go deep in that, okay, how can we learn more about these algorithms and how can we better use them? At the end of the day, at the core of it, it's all about pattern detection. And humans have been doing that too. It's that Isaac Newton sort of way where he saw a pattern in something else and then applied that pattern in, let's suppose, astronomy, and then came up with this new theory, right? So at the end of the day, it's deep learning of some place and applying it on similar patterns.
Okay, so I'll come back to actually the education bit later. But first, if AI is so powerful, is it going to be everywhere in 5 years?
And I can't predict the future, whether it's going to be there in 5 years, but certainly it's going to be in a lot more places. There's one thing that it's kind of a similar point that I want to make is that I like your counterfactual question. So in the same vein, let's assume that all these companies, OpenAI and Anthropic and Claude and Google, and they say from today onwards we will not make any more LLMs, but what we have we'll keep. Okay, I think the LLMs being the way they are so disruptive, have so much economic value to offer that even then it'll take us 5 to 10 years to completely take advantage of what we have today. And of course it's counterfactual. They're not going to stop. They're going to keep working on it. So that's why I say there's a lot more disruption down the pike.
Yeah, I would argue that they cannot stop even if they want to. Because the economics of this will not work. So मैं एक estimate लगा था कि जैसे अभी Grok launch हुआ, right? So Grok जो भी उसे कहला है, right? So Grok 3 और उसका जो infrastructure था वो roughly अगर हम उसको 3 सालों में depreciate करें, जो 3 सालों में depreciate नहीं होगा, इससे पहले depreciate होगा, roughly $50 billion, right? अब now मुझे उसको 1 साल में अगर let's suppose depreciate करना है, क्योंकि चिप्स तो बहुत तेजी से आगे बढ़ रही हैं, right? तो depreciate होगा बहुत जल्दी. So it has to have a lot of lifetime value in so many ways for it to make an economical sense for the company.
Sure.
Right? So you asked कि क्या ये हर जगह पे नजर आएगा? अगर ये हर जगह पे नहीं नजर आएगा तो ये survive नहीं करेगा. तो I would argue कि economically the companies that are AI में invest कर रही हैं, उनका economical survival ही इस चीज़ में है कि वो हर जगह पे इसको embed करें. And I personally think the more AI is embedded in different departments, the better it will be in solving the problems for humans, right? So the limitation of today's world when it comes to AI is that it's a mixture of human and AIs, right? And that's where it becomes even more complex. If it's just AI, if it's just robot talking to each other and then improving and then reasoning, oh, that's a very good world. Like that's a very fast world. It's a dangerous world because now we can read their language because they are communicating in natural language also. But if they are starting to come up with their own language, because this language is not very efficient, right? So agar they come up with their own 0-1 language and we cannot read it, I don't know where they will go. But let's suppose hypothetically बात करें कि हम ये कह रहे हैं कि सेल्फ ड्राइविंग कार में, लेट्स सपोज हम सेल्फ ड्राइविंग कार का एग्जांपल लेते हैं, ठीक है. अभी सेल्फ ड्राइविंग कार इसलिए नहीं रियलिटी बन रही क्योंकि ह्यूमंस उसमें इन्वॉल्व है और ह्यूमन ड्राइवर्स आर वेरी अनप्रेडिक्टेबल, दे कैन डू व्हाटएवर. बट लेट्स सपोज एवरीवन इज जस्ट सेल्फ ड्राइविंग इज इलीगल, लेट्स सपोज, ठीक, ओनली सेल्फ ड्राइविंग कार कैन एग्जिस्ट, then it's not a very difficult thing to build a self-driving mechanism and economy of it, right? So I would argue that first of all, their survival depends on putting it everywhere. And secondly, that's a better progressive world.
Okay, so I'm going to push back on some of this.
Yeah. हम ज़रा philosophy में चले गए.
Hey, it's not philosophy. It's projection, and there's value in doing these projections because they're fragments of possible futures.
Yeah.
In all of it, right? So it's
और ये माइंड की वारा कर दी है, मैंने इसको ज़्यादा जज नहीं करना.
Well, that's a nice way to put it. So, first of all, the problem with doing computers to computers is that it can't be a complete system in the sense that these machines exist to serve humans at this point in time, at least, right? They exist because humans have created them, because humans want to derive value, either economic or private, whatever. And so if they're very plugged into each other, there has to be a point at which they interface with humans. And then
only in policy method.
And then humans have to engage with the world as it exists. So in some sense, you're going to have to bifurcate into a human world and a technology world. And so you're saying that if we expand the interlinkages between the technology, that can be fine. We'd want humans to stay in as gatekeepers at some point. But eventually technology still has to interface with the human. So your car driving example, you can have cars driving around, but you need humans to decide where to go. You'll need humans to be in the car and so on, right?
Yeah.
This is an example where there's a neat divide where there's no real conflict between the machine and the human. But you can imagine scenarios, particularly scenarios where humans have to make judgments and the machine thinks it knows better than the human, for example, where those type of conflicts will become harder problems to engage with. But also to come back to your other point, which is that the current technological solutions that have been rolled out are not yet economically viable, if I understand what you said. So, so they need to continue expanding to reach that viability. My sort of story here is that we're going to see something close to the early 2000s, late 90s internet bubble. We are in a bubble, most people seem to think. And a lot of these companies won't survive. And then we'll have a sort of slower growth, but more sustained growth, 5 or 10 years from now.
Which is the case and which should be the case.
Which is fine.
Which is fine,
Which is fine.
Yeah.
It's creative destruction.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. So, there is this sort of debate within economists about just what the potential of this thing is. Daron Acemoglu, who's perhaps the most famous economist living today, suggests that we haven't seen the type of productivity boosts in the economy after the advent of AI, and therefore he's bearish on the potential of AI overall. And as opposed to him, there are people who think that there's a J curve, that we're in the sort of low level trajectory right now, but there's going to be a kink in the curve and then productivity will skyrocket. I'm closer to that type of thinking, but what do you think?
I'm the same. I think that is essentially what happens. I mean, if you look at the .com boom, it was very ridiculous in late 90s. All kind of useless ideas were getting funded, and people were doing all kind of stupid antics and wasting money and so on and so forth. In 2001, internet became a disgusting word where, I mean, people didn't want to And but there was underlying value there.
Yeah.
And 2-3 years later, I mean, the boom happened, and all kind of things, that ideas that no one could think of, like Facebook or Google as a search engine or whatever it is. Google was probably the 8th search engine, and frankly, there was a time in late 90s, we used to sit together in the evening. Like, I used to live in Boston. My friends, we used to, once a week, we'd get together and we'd laugh at all the stupid ideas on the internet. And one person once said, "Oh, there's a new company called Google, and their claim to fame is that they have a button which says, 'I feel lucky.'" And they got funded, and we were laughing like, what a stupid idea. I feel lucky, and just for that one idea. And we didn't think deeply enough that there is actually the concept of papers, how citations happen, and there is actually a lot of value. Of course, years later we did, but so there is all these seemingly stupid ideas that even now exist, and we say, okay, we're in a bubble, and these kind of ideas are floating to the top, but you never know which of these ideas.
So the Google "I feel lucky" was a stupid button, and the value of Google was hiding behind that button. I think.
So आपने जो क्वेश्चन किया, मैं हैपन टू बी कि अभी आप लोग आ रहे थे तो मैं आई वाज रीडिंग HBR magazine, and happened to be the idea, the article that I was reading was that they conducted this study that if they've given an organization access to ChatGPT and all the AIs of the world, and the other organization and multiple organizations like that, where they ask people to do everything manually as it is being done right now, right? So they saw that the people who were enabled with AI, their productivity boosted and their engagement increased by a certain percentage. But the output of that, so for example, they use ChatGPT to build an analysis on their forecast, whatever, right? And they saw that this analysis is better than their analysis, right? They did it manually. And then now they have to do a second step on that analysis, maybe build a better analysis or whatever. And their ChatGPT cannot help, or maybe there the human involvement is there. And there they saw a huge decline in their productivity, where they saw a sustainable increase in their productivity, right? So what I'm saying is essentially, productivity will be increased or not, engagement will be increased or not. That's a very questionable thing right now. And ओरिजिनली जब AI आया था तो हमने सोचा था कि यार सबसे पहले ब्लू कॉलर जॉब्स रिप्लेस होंगी, फिर वाइट कॉलर जॉब्स पे आएगा, फिर क्रिएटिव्स की तरफ जाएगा, यानी दैट वाज वी अज्यूम कि 10 साल में ही होगा, लेकिन ऐसा हुआ नहीं. मतलब नहीं, अभी पहले क्रिएटिव की जॉब रिप्लेस हुई हैं, फिर एंड और फिर CFOs की जॉब रिप्लेस हुई हैं, ब्लू कॉलर तो पहुंचे नहीं है, राइट? तो ये बिल्कुल इंट्यूटिव नहीं है, और किस तरफ जाएगा, इट्स अ वेरी billion dollar question.
I agree. So actually, in how I've organized my own thoughts about this, I've kept that as the key thing that I'm going to probe you on more in a bit. But first, मैं सबक लिख कर आया हूँ अपना.
जी, please.
That neural networks are universal approximators, and that this means that they can, in theory, learn any function. So, if the machine can learn any function, then the machine can learn how the human brain works, even improve upon it potentially. And this is the building block that writers have used to argue that we are heading towards artificial general intelligence or super intelligence. And I've sort of voiced my fears about this to Zafar Saab previously, and you've given me no hope in the past. What's your view right now, both of you, on whether AGI is in the future? Sam Altman thinks it'll happen in 5 years, and there are plenty of others. But surveys of experts in this field have a median time of maybe, is it 30 or 40 years? And then there's a very large dispersion. Many people also think it will never happen. Where do you stand?
Okay, I think it will happen, but I also think it's not going to happen with the LLM, with the transformer architecture.
Sure.
They essentially, the way it can happen is more on the lines of Neuralink, where there is a brain hardware interface, and you are simulating or making the the parallel of a brain and a connectionist machine with probes. It's a very, very different way of. I think
So you're looking at individual synapses and
individual synapses and so on and so forth, and then you're basically uploading your whole brain into that connectionist machine, and you have sort of a copy of your brain, and even if it's not your specific brain, that a human brain is being copied, and that has far more resources, or 100 times the neurons, and that would be the direction. But the LLM as a path to AGI, I think it's a dead end path. It's never gonna. I mean, you can see that for the next generation of GPT architecture, you're gonna require 100 times as much as compute power, and you'll need more than the energy of the sun or whatever, energy of all the power plants in the world, and so on and so forth. And that's not, it's not, basically, it's not, what I'm just saying is it's not a scalable way to grow, and a completely different path will happen. So AGI will happen, but not to this path.
So basically,
and on what timeline? Ballpark.
If I were to put an upper bound, I would say 10 years.
Oh wow, okay.
So essentially, so interesting आवारागर्दी ये भी ठीक है. और अगर सैम अल्टमैन ये कह रहा है कि 5 साल में ही हो जाएगा, तो ऑब्वियसली वो तो यही कहेगा, मतलब ही इज द कासिम अली शाह ऑफ एआई, तो मतलब उसको वही कहना है. लेकिन you know अब so 90 gigawatt is the energy that is required by the US only, the companies that are demanding, and 90 gigawatt is something that is not being produced in the world right now, right? And essentially मेरा नहीं ख्याल, पहली बात तो एजे को डिफाइन करना बड़ा मुश्किल है, आप और मैं बैठ कर डिफाइन नहीं कर सकते. ठीक, एजे क्या है? एक आम बंदा जो पिछले 100 साल पहले चले जाए, उसके लिए तो ये लैन और वाईफाई में जो हो रहा है, ये भी कोई बंदा, कोई सुपर इंटेलिजेंस, कोई मिरेकल और जादू ही है, राइट? सो एजे को एग्जैक्टली डिफाइन करना मुश्किल है. लेकिन चले, अगर हम सेम डेफिनेशन पे अगर हैं ही, तो इस सेम डेफिनेशन पे आ जाना, हम एज अ ह्यूमन का ये मशीन का इस डेफिनेशन पे किसी एब्स्ट्रैक्ट डेफिनेशन पे इस तरह एग्री करना, ये भी पॉसिबल नहीं है, राइट? असाइड द फैक्ट कि इसकी इकोनॉमिकल सेंस नहीं बनती, एजीआई की इकोनॉमिकल इसकी फिजिबिलिटी नहीं बनेगी. आई डोंट थिंक वी आर नियर, एंड आई डोंट थिंक इट विल एवर हैपन. ओके, एंड माई रीजन फॉर दैट, अब नाउ इट्स अ फिलोसफिकल थिंग, जो भी हमने लास्ट में डिबेट शुरू की थी, इट कैन नॉट बी विदाउट फिलोसफी, राइट? सो हम जब प्रोग्रामिंग करते हैं, तो प्रोग्रामिंग में वी यूज दिस फंक्शन ऑफ रैंड, राइट? रैंडम, right? And essentially that random function should just return us a random number, right? And theoretically that random should be a random, like it's so random that if I know all the patterns that are going in that machine, I should not be able to detect कि random से क्या निकलेगा, ठीक? Even the machine who is producing that random should not know कि random से क्या निकलेगा, ठीक? और ये random की जो साइंस होती है, उसमें एक सॉल्ट जाता है, ठीक? एक randomish चीज होती जाती है, और उसकी बेस पे वो एक random नंबर निकालता है, ठीक है? अब क्वेश्चन ये है कि क्या वो सॉल्ट जो है वो मशीन को दिया गया है? अगर हम ह्यूमंस की बात करें, तो हमारे पास भी एक सॉल्ट, एक रात का थॉट प्रोड्यूस होती है, जो कि इकबाल की शायरी बन जाती है, या जो कि एक हैरी पॉटर नॉवल बन जाता है, या जो कि कुछ आर्टिस्ट्री सी बन जाती है, आइजैक न्यूटन का आइडिया बन जाता है, राइट? सो नाउ दैट सॉल्ट, नाउ फिलॉसफी इज कि क्या वो हम खुद प्रोड्यूस करते हैं? और अगर तो हम खुद प्रोड्यूस करते हैं, तो शायद हम उसका पैटर्न निकाल के कंप्यूटर को भी सिखा सकें कि वो थॉट कैसे प्रोड्यूस करनी है. और अगर वो सॉर्ट सबकॉन्शियसली कहीं से आता है, फ्री विल एग्जिस्ट करती नहीं करती, उस तरफ जा रहा हूँ मैं, राइट? तो अगर वहाँ से आता है, और वी डू नॉट प्रोड्यूस आवर ओन थॉट्स, वी आर जस्ट विटनेसिंग व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, व्हिच आई बिलीव, देन AGI will never happen.
Okay, so as an economist, I've been trained not to look at philosophy.
Okay.
And instead to simplify the world. In my simplified definition, a machine that consistently and across many domains passes the Turing test,
sure,
is intelligent enough for my purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So the random number that you're talking about might not be truly random, but it is random enough.
Yeah. Again, a definition of AGI.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So computer can play better chess than me,
sure,
right? Because it's detectable patterns. It's finite patterns. It's not infinite patterns.
Yep.
And it is a pattern. It's not, and it's based on the past data also. It's not a out of the box thing So for example, let's suppose last 100 साल पहले किसी ने वैक्सीन इजाद की, उसके जहन में एक आइडिया आया कि यार एक जरासीम निकालो, वही डाल दो तो उससे खुद ही बॉडी कर लेगी, राइट? नाउ दिस आइडिया इज AGI. दिस आइडिया कंप्यूटर कैन नेवर बी एबल टू कम विद दिस. लेकिन गिवन दैट आइडिया, तो 100 साल में जो हमने प्रोग्रेस की है रिसर्च में, स्लोली वो 20 मिनट में हो सकती थी, अब यस हो सकती थी, राइट? द ओरिजिनल डायरेक्शन ऑफ थॉट केम फ्रॉम अ ह्यूमन, राइट? It can never come from computer per se. It will get better. Probably self driving कार हो जाएगी और आप उसको AGI बोल सकते हो तो बोल दो. AGI है नहीं, वो पैटर्न डिटेक्शन है, ठीक है?
Okay.
Will computer be able to redirect and become a new Isaac Newton for the centuries to come? I don't think so. There is no evidence of that considering the current things that we have. It's all based on previous data, making intelligent decision on past data. Right? And you can argue कि humans भी यही करते हैं, and I can argue कि maybe नहीं भी करते हैं, और उनकी अपनी creative thinking भी होती है. Yeah.
I have a thought on the your concept of Turing test. I think Turing test, we kind of think of the Turing test in a very generally in a very loose way. How can you detect whether it's a human or a machine, right? So it can ask you question, and if a machine answers, basically the Turing test is, there is, if I can put a statement on it, that there is some entity on the other end, and it asks a question, and it doesn't know whether it's a human or it's a computer on the other end. And it asks a question, it gets a response, and it judges whether it's a computer or it's a human, right? Now, that, if you look at a very loosey-goosey definition of that, yeah, maybe a machine can pass a Turing test. But I argue that currently, with the current 2025, with all this compute power and all that, nothing passes the Turing test. And I also argue that LLMs will never pass a Turing test.
Why is that?
Because you can ask a question, let's say I'm the Turing tester, and I can ask a question, what is 7 plus 6, and human will give the same answer, and presumably the machine will give the same answer. But I can ask a more difficult question that a human will not be able to answer, and the machine will be able to answer. So machine has to discern whether a human can answer or not, and it has to simulate the human's brain's capacity in that particular context. But in another context, it has to, so for it to do that, with current state of the art, it doesn't exist. So that's so if what I suggest, what I am saying is that if a machine is able to answer, is able to pass the Turing test, we have reached AGI. Because then you can just go 10x. Human, I have only that many neurons. I cannot increase or can't significantly increase. But if I can pass the Turing, if I was a machine, I could pass the Turing test, I could go 10x, 100x, million x. It's just compute power and transistors. And then I can go really big.
इस पे एक argument ये है कि amount of size of neurons and brain size is one limitation, but data entry is also a limitation, right? So humans can collect more data at any point of time than a computer, and the current scenarios that we have, we can collect and feed, to computers. Because
that's
at
a
the
sensor limitation.
Sensor limitation भी है, दूसरी भी है, right? So अभी हम पहले पे आर्गुमेंट कर रहे थे, अब हम दूसरे पे आर्गुमेंट कर रहे हैं कि डाटा कलेक्शन भी लिमिटेड है कंप्यूटर के पास. उतना डाटा नहीं है जितना हमारे पास है. हम जितना किसी भी सिचुएशन से कलेक्ट कर सकते हैं और पास से ला सकते हैं, उतना कंप्यूटर एबिलिटी नहीं है ना.
But Usman can read files, right?
Yes, right. I would say it's differently abled. I can't read 1,000 pages of a phone directory in a minute.
Sure.
A computer can.
Number crunching, yes.
Right. So it's a different type of sensing. Mine is probably more diffused. and I can selectively, it's more general purpose, I can select and focus in on something better. But, and I don't know.
You cannot also see every movie that has been given. You cannot, in a finite time, every camera in China that's looking at the
Exactly. So, to my mind, the sensor limitation on many of our problems will get solved fairly quickly. Maybe
So the question is, मैं ये बात मैं कर रहा था, इसकी वजह ये थी कि मैं एक एग्जांपल पे सोचता हूँ कि लेट्स सपोज बिल्ली वाला इमेज हमने बात करते हैं अक्सर के, एक बच्चे को, छोटे बच्चे को बिल्ली दिखा दो और फिर एक बिल्कुल डिफरेंट टाइप की बिल्ली दिखाओ तो वो डिटेक्ट कर लिया कि ये बिल्ली ही है, ठीक. लेकिन कंप्यूटर को कितने ज़्यादा इमेजेस पढ़ाने पड़ेंगे और फिर भी क्या वो बिल्ली को पहचान पाएगा कि नहीं पहचान पाएगा, दैट्स अ क्वेश्चन, ठीक. डिफरेंट कलर का, बड़ी बिल्ली, छोटी बिल्ली, टाइगर लेवल बिल्ली, जो भी व्हाटएवर ऐसे कर रही थी.
That's a computer problem though, it's not a sensing problem.
अब नाउ से हाँ, यही मैं सोच रहा था, अभी आप बात कर रहे थे, मैं ये सोच रहा था ये सेंसिंग प्रॉब्लम है कि कंप्यूटर प्रॉब्लम है.
So, right, so for sensing, so when I look around this room, I can see different objects and I have to figure out how to engage with my motor skills in the physical space.
Sure.
Sensors are now available that can do that fairly well, maybe not as well as humans still. So the best robotic companies in the world are still engaging with problems that a human will be able to solve intuitively, but we're getting there. I'm just trying to think of anything that I can sense in my existence that a machine can possibly not sense. And I'm a little, sound, 5 senses, right? Everything I imagine can be sensed by machines. So it's a question of whether sensors become cheap enough and if it makes economic sense, as you pointed out, to start sensing as much as humans sense. But that's a different problem. So,
sure.
But
that's also part of argument where we think AGI is not just computational thing, it's a collection of data also.
Yeah.
That can limit it.
Right. So on this question of, I've seen very smart people, economists engaging with AI internationally, get stuck on the problem of super intelligence and whether we're getting there. And a lot of smart people do agree with the 5 or 10 year time horizon. And Zafar Saab saying 10 years makes me nervous. Sam Altman saying 5 years makes me nervous. But if you were to, so the way I think about problems where I'm confused.
10 years, I meant upper bound.
Okay,
I also think it's 5 years.
So you're making it scarier still.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that you think it won't happen. The way I think about problems where I'm not certain, just to clarify where I stand, because sometimes you're like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Is actually another thought experiment, which is to ask myself, imagine that someone is holding a gun to my head and will fire if I give the wrong answer.
Yeah.
I don't know the right answer, but what's my best guess?
Yeah.
How can I make myself survive as best as possible?
Right.
And if I were in that situation today, I'd say we will not reach AGI in at least 30 years. And after that, I'd say just, do a coin toss and shoot, because I don't know what happens after that. But also, it is a problem that perhaps isn't.
अच्छा, एक और प्रॉब्लम इस बात करते हैं, थोड़ा सा एक मिनट, सॉरी, आपकी थॉट को मैं थोड़ा यहाँ डिस्टर्ब होऊंगा, मेरी अपनी थॉट डिस्टर्ब हुई है. सो अभी जो हम फौरी तौर पे एक आप पिक देख रहे हैं इंटेलिजेंस की, वो इसलिए भी है कि हमारे पास 50-60 साल का डाटा अवेलेबल था जो ह्यूमंस ने प्रोड्यूस किया था, जो कि रियल डाटा था, और उसकी बेस पे हमने लिया. अब एआई डाटा जनरेट कर रही है, राइट, विच विल इंक्रीज इन नॉइज, which will increase in hallucination, and the confidence on machines will go down. Because most of the data that is now being generated in this year alone is probably more than last 50 years of data that is naturally generated.
Sure.
Right? Now, will machine be as accurate after this age of this spike, or it will just go down in confidence? And an example that I have in recent time, हमने देखा कि हर बैंक में, हर दूसरे दुनिया के बड़े बैंक ने सपोर्ट डिपार्टमेंट को ऑटोमेट कर दिया है जी, बंदे फायर करो, किसी तरह ऑटोमेट कर दो. और अभी तकरीबन हर तीसरा बैंक वापस रीहायर कर रहा है बहुत सारे सपोर्ट डिपार्टमेंट्स को, क्योंकि जो उनका डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं वो अच्छा परफॉर्म नहीं कर पा रहे, जो कि वो बहुत जल्दी उन्होंने फॉर्मों में गिव अप कर था, वो शायद थोड़ा सा वापस आ रहे हैं. तो मेरे ख्याल से जो करेक्शन पीरियड होगा, दैट विल ऑल्सो डिफाइन कि एजीआई कितना रियलिस्टिक फिनोमेना है.
Okay.
A student of computer science, I can see it's all patterns, and the patterns are not strong enough right now.
So I was reading a book yesterday that reminded me of something you said in our last conversation, which is that decisions are a function of both prediction, which machines can do well, and judgment. I actually think judgment is also something that you can recognize patterns in, and therefore something that machines will eventually do as well as we will. But this question, I've struggled with this for 6 months, maybe more, and I'm still uncertain about where the world will be in 20, 30 years. But also I find that eventually there are two scenarios. One where we never reach AGI, and the other in which we do, in which case machines become conscious and become sort of sentient. They start to manipulate humans. The Terminator story. Right? So they start manipulating humans to their purposes. And at which point, if any moats that you've built in the pre-superintelligence world, whether that's collecting land or gold or whatever else, doesn't matter because the machine can solve for that. And so as I've told both of you privately before, I play the reverse Pascal's wager, which I define as saying, let's say that we're uncertain, 50-50 AGI will happen. Let's assume that it won't happen because we've still got work to do. And if AGI does happen, then all is lost, might as well resign. The downside risk to not working if work was possible is much more sort of valuable and gives you human agency. So with that, even if you write, God forbid, about the 5-year or 10-year time period, let's imagine it doesn't happen. And that's where the difficult conversation then starts, which is in this imperfect AI that we have today, what happens next, right? So it's very easy to say, oh, AGI happens, everything is finished. That's a simple conversation. The harder conversation is AI is limited by energy and compute and data and sensors. It has to be deployed. There's going to be a finite footprint with which it's deployed, which will impact economic ecosystems. It will impact the type of technologies that can be built atop existing systems. So that's my sort of what I want to elicit thoughts on is assuming AGI doesn't happen, how does AI move in the middle period, whether that's 2 years or 5 years, however we want to think about it? What would be the next significant change in how the world is transfigured technologically?
Technologically, well, I mean, certainly technology is definitely moving faster. I totally agree that there is, with the HBR article and what you were saying about how at least the less experienced people are getting a huge productivity boost. And so with fewer people, you are producing a lot more software, a lot better software. Maybe the people at the very high end programmers, like the really, let's say, top 10%, top 5%, they may be even better off without the distraction of AI generated code, but everyone else. So things will move a lot faster. Things are moving a lot faster. So certainly that is happening. I know that we all know there are job losses, even for programmers. When I worked with people in Silicon Valley, they don't necessarily want a lot of low-level programmers from Pakistan or even in the US, because they themselves can roll their sleeves up and get things done. So that is happening. But I don't want it to be only a negative thing. I think even I think in future, in the near future, I would say now, there is possibility of a lot more entrepreneurship. As in, you have an idea, you can quickly implement it without putting up a team of 20 people to actually code that idea, to bring it about. You can make up the tagline without having a marketing company make a good tagline for you. You can make up a website, you can make the app, you can present it. It's just there's a joke about the one person unicorn, $1 billion company with one person doing that. To me, I'm sure maybe that's a theoretical idea, but it's not that inconceivable, right? I mean, you can see that at least you need 20 people or 50 people to have that $1 billion valuation company. You alone can spend a 100-hour week for 3 months, and you have that same amount of output. To me, that's a cool idea. So I think that could be a hopeful way of looking at the world.
So going back to what you were saying, we're going to pause technology where it is, but we're going to extend it. We're going to deploy it in better ways. Are we at a point where a single person unicorn is possible with today's technology?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because we've seen past.
Can you teach me how?
Yeah, it's a simple pattern, right? So previously अगर हम बात करें कि बिलियनर्स कैसे हुआ करते थे, तो फिर वो होते थे जो ऑयल और गैस में होते थे और जो मल्टी जनरेशनल थे. फिर गूगल्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड आए, उन्होंने रिप्लेस कर लिया. फिर टिकटॉक ऑफ द वर्ल्ड आए, जिन्होंने मेटा को जाके कर लिया. और अब हम देख रहे हैं ओपन एआई एंड डीप सीक टाइप्स. वैसे डीप सीक को काफ़ी अर्सा हो गया, लोग समझते हैं अभी आया, इट्स बिन अराउंड फॉर क्वाइट सम टाइम. We are seeing many examples of that. There are bad examples, builder AI types also, like, and there are good players in general. There are
so let me make this point sharply. If a single person unicorn is possible, why hasn't it happened?
Why hasn't it happened? Okay.
And do you think that if it's possible, then
It's been 2 years.
Exactly, it's been 2 years, right?
Yeah,
and you've got
the underlying technology is moving fast. It was just a matter of
you
the
can see
technology versus person intersecting it.
okay.
you could.
So how long do you think it will take before we see the first single person unicorn?
I mean, it's not a matter of exactly predicting कि वो कब होगा, लेकिन it's clearly, it's
because I don't believe a scenario where you say something is possible, but the world isn't achieving it, right? Over a finite time period, you have to say, well, it will be possible in 2 or 3 years. People need time. That's fine. But it has to happen if we're going to believe it's possible. Otherwise, there's some constraint that we're not really articulating well.
No, so it doesn't have to happen. So, for example, there are ideas that are conceivable, that are very close to happening, but it doesn't happen.
Okay.
It's okay to conceive that कि यार आप ऐसा problem solve कर सकते हैं society के लिए with the tools that are available to you. Essentially तो यही idea ना कि आप economy में ऐसा problem solve कर सकते हैं that is big enough for you to make billions out of it.
Okay.
That the market has not understood. And you have understood because you had all the cheap intelligence available to you, which in past was only available to a few people that were very higher ups in the hierarchy. The leverage of humans that people have to collect data, now that leverage is gone by technology, right?
Yes.
The leverage of anything else that is not, it's not perceivable at least.
100%.
Right? So it's, although अभी नहीं हुआ है, लेकिन ये काफी करीब है. ये तो AGI होगा नहीं होगा वो तो चलो एक ख्याली, वो फिलोसफिकल बात है. ये तो बिल्कुल एक मतलब इकोनॉमिक्स वाली बात है. आपने कहा था कि simple.
So I find that when I'm using AI to support my work as an economist, that my ability to use it is constrained by 2 things. One is my learning of how to prompt it properly. That's a technological problem that I can solve. Just being lazy, I should solve it very quickly. The other is my domain knowledge. Impacting my ability to ask good questions.
Yeah.
Because I'm constrained by my domain knowledge, and that's finite, I'm not going to become some super economist just by using AI, I don't think. Would you agree with that assessment? No. You think I can become a super economist using AI?
I think you, by the way, mashallah, you already are.
I'm going to discount everything you said so far.
But I think this is the beauty. This is what I guess that's the heart of the matter. This is what I'm trying to get at. That domain knowledge is matters less and less now. In the sense that, first of all, let's start with your idea of prompt. Your prompt is not good enough. Make the LLM make a better prompt for you. And then make the LLM make a better prompt to make a better prompt for you until you get the perfect prompt, which will solve your particular need to understand within 100 words or 1,000 words, what you need to understand about the domain that you're working in, and then go through the trouble of doing 3-4 domains. And this for many years, for many people, this would require a course in this and that, and over the years, and you have boiled it down to something small. And if I wanted to have our mythical billion-dollar company, I needed to understand 6-7 different things well enough that I could do it. I need to know enough about the sales process, about how to create the proper messaging, about the tech that I need to develop. And I should probably know one of those things really well, but many of those things when I needed people and assembling the team, I could do it myself. That is what, I mean, if you say, I have a really cool idea, but who's going to do this? I don't know that's when you say, yes, I am the one who's going to form that billion-dollar company myself.
I don't. So my experience so far, maybe it's because I haven't learned how to use it, and maybe I haven't asked it to give me the right prompts. But I tell it to make me simple LaTeX slides and so PDF typesetting slides, and it can't get one slide right?
Yeah, slides mein or PDF mein, it's not right. Everything else is right.
But it will make $1 billion company.
That will make a
So what I'm extrapolating from here is, if it can't get a slide correct, maybe there is a class of errors it makes that will apply in other types of problems. So which I don't know. So I do know that the PDF is wrong, but in some area that I don't have domain knowledge myself, it's going to make errors I won't pick up.
Yeah, there is danger of that. Okay,
I disagree with slightly on your last point. Sorry for interruption. I do believe that you need to ask better question, and ChatGPT can help you go there, but you do need some you do need to ask the right question. Right? It's not about the answer, it's always about the question. It has now become easier to ask the question, right? But the question matters.
Yeah.
Right? And just slide वाली PDF वाली बात है, वो तो of course वो तो, लेकिन now ChatGPT has become very good in research also, the latest articles and all that. Reasoning में बेहतर हो गई है, लेकिन slides वाली चीज जो वो technical
forget about slides. I'm saying that if it's consistently giving us errors today, and it's hallucinating, we know it is bound to hallucinate by the type of technology it is, that then in areas that I can validate errors in, that's fine. Then it's still a force multiplier for me, because I can pick up the error. It's quicker than writing the code from scratch. In areas I can't pick up the error, it can take me down a rabbit hole.
True.
And that's a problem I don't know how to solve.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm conscious that we're way beyond
130 is fine. 130 is fine.
But I want to, before we close, maybe there's a natural transition to this question of, we all have kids. What should our kids be? I've asked you this question repeatedly. How should a kid that you're building up from scratch or from middle school be trained differently from how you and I were trained in order to leverage AI in 10 years, 5 years?
So मैं ना अभी आपकी बात हो रही थी, मैं ये बात करना भी चाह रहा था कि there are 3 types of people in this post AI world. एक वो हैं जो हमारे एज के हैं, राइट, जो कि उससे पहले के थे, उन्होंने ऑलरेडी सीनियर्स तक पहुंच गए, आर्किटेक्ट्स तक पहुंच गए, अब एआई भी आ गया, तो अब हमें पता है कहाँ पे एआई यूज़ करना है, कहाँ पे नहीं यूज़ करना, ठीक. एक वो हैं जिन्होंने बिल्कुल ही, यानी दे जस्ट बॉर्न इन दैट एरा, और उनको पता ही सिर्फ ये वाला वर्ल्ड है. और एक वो हैं जो कि अभी जूनियर लेवल पे थे और साथ ही एआई आ गया, राइट. आई एम नॉट वेरी वरिड अबाउट द सीनियर्स or the very juniors. Okay, I'm worried about the middle people, right?
Yeah.
So they are the ones who are getting replaced.
Yes.
They are the ones जिनको भी समझ में नहीं आ रहा उन्होंने क्या करना है, उनको एक शिफ्ट हो रही है. Seniors are safe. Seniors already know कि यार AI को कहाँ पे यूज करना है, और थोड़ा सा इंटेलिजेंट, obviously critical thinking is assumed. And this type of catastrophe will need to happen for any big change, right? So वो जो middle में cost होगी, वो cost of doing business है, वो होगा ही होगा. जो नए वाले बच्चे आ रहे हैं वो बहुत सेट है, वो they already understand the tools. like मेरा छोटे वाला बच्चा बिल्कुल MetaAI से CAT की तस्वीर जनरेट करता था, so they know where to use it and how to enable themselves to do better with AI. I'm not worried about them.
They know how to ask simple questions so far. well, what domain knowledge should they specialize in college, for example, right? What are the right majors to take? That's the type of stuff. And it will be intuitive for them in a way that it's not intuitive for us. The same way as, kids who are now 10 or 12 find social media intuitive in a way I still don't find it intuitive. That's fine. I understand that. As a tool, there'll be good users, intuitive users, because they're born.
No, but they're having big questions now. They're thinking out loud, like literally.
Okay, let me reframe.
Yeah.
As a parent, as a teacher, how do you direct them, given that they're great? How do you optimize?
I don't.
For a kid who's 5 or 4?
I don't. I let them think. So मैंने अपने बच्चे की MetaAI वाली सारी चैट पढ़ी, वो पता नहीं कितने महीनों से करता आ रहा है।
Okay.
और वो वाली चैट अगर वो मेरे सामने करता ना, तो मैंने बहुत पहले उससे नाराज हो जाना था कि मतलब इनके यार ये किस तरह के क्वेश्चन पूछे तो मैं शर्म नहीं आती, राइट? लेकिन he was asking the bigger questions. He was asking मेरा करियर मूव क्या होगा, मैं फ्यूचर कहाँ पे देखूंगा, क्या मैं ये आइडिया पे काम कर सकता हूँ, क्या मुझे ये करना चाहिए, राइट? So all those small things now he is asking, and it's good that he's thinking that bit. I think he's making good decisions. Now I can guide him based on my experience and he can argue with me better. I'm still not worried because it's the reality के hallucination होगी, and they understand that because they are the user of it. We are now adapting to it and we are now too much impressed with this technology because हमें वो FOMO हुआ, उनको नहीं हुआ था. So I would not worry.
How would you?
Well, if you look at data right now, the Gen Z males in the US, they are not going to college. Like, for instance, my son is at Stanford, which has, I believe, 42% males and 58% females. So there is this big trend of being anti-college, that there is no need to go to college. There's the more enterprising males in the US are starting plumbing companies and literally going and starting companies that are mowing lawns of people, not themselves, but hiring 20 people who are mowing lawns. And, like they're doing a lot more things. And you would say that's kind of stupid. Like 20 years ago, you would be like, man, you're just destroying your future. Why are you doing this? But I don't know if they're doing it consciously for that reason or not, but those are the kind of jobs that are hardest to replace by AI.
And it's so funny because हमने पहले तो ये सोचा था कि यही वाली replace होंगी, लेकिन it's funny कि
this is you were saying that earlier on, the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's the blue collars that are the hardest to replace by AI, and the creative and the white collars that are the easiest to replace. So I would say that's an interesting trend. The other thing is that the jobs that are very hardcore, electrical engineering or even mechanical engineering, AI is far, assuming AGI doesn't happen, where it just absolutely is way above uber intelligence that can do anything. Unless that something like that happens, we are a ways from that. So those are the kind of jobs that.
And so you're talking about areas where there are sort of closed systems with correct answers to things, where there are logical sort of.
And also a lot more interaction with the physical world.
Okay. What about medicine? Do you think that? So
I'm actually working on a med tech.
Yes.
And I can see that certainly the doctors, what we are working on, will make the more junior doctors far more productive or have better outcomes for the patient.
Yeah.
So now, will we need doctors anymore? I don't know. That's a question. Same thing with lawyers. Will we need lawyers anymore? There have been recidivism, or when a judge gives someone bail or not. There were studies done, and it turns out that AI does way better than judges. And if you give bail to the wrong person and he commits a crime, that's a negative, right? And if you
lawyers, I'm happy to replace. But okay, so I think we should start bringing this to a close. Let me ask a few quick questions. Maybe give me quick answers. Just replicating what you were saying earlier. By the way, I don't buy this idea that lawnmower businesses will continue. You've heard of Roombas, right? We'll have Roombas for the lawn. That I'm pretty sure that will. And China is solving for robotics much quicker than we've got dog factories that are building cars without humans in there. So I don't think that these small motor skills are really a moat. But what's the biggest barrier to AI adoption in a developing country like Pakistan?
I think just availability, compute power, the ability to. By the way, I think it's a lot of the state of the art is pretty available, right? Anyone can go to ChatGPT and get it. But I don't think there's anything majorly insurmountable. The cost of hardware have gone down and cost of connection has gone down. I don't see a big.
Are there bespoke data sets like, so if the Urdu corpus isn't as great as the Hindi corpus, things like this?
No.
We still have Hindi titles on Netflix and not Urdu titles.
Yeah.
Is that a quick problem that will get solved?
Yeah, it'll get solved. That's not.
So what do you think barriers to adoption in a poorer country?
Fear of change, and denial. That okay, people are finding justification not to just change.
Okay. On a 3-year time horizon, are you worried about alignment and AI safety?
AI safety, yeah, I mean, it depends on the domain, how you're using it. If you're using it to make life, if you're basically using AI to make a decision about someone's disease or they don't have a disease, something like that, if you're misusing it for sure.
To clarify, Tesla's self-driving cars have already killed people. But so have human drivers.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about accidents that are below or even in the ballpark of human errors. I'm worried about places where it runs away and creates catastrophes, and we're not able to stop it. So alignment issues, which in the AGI space is the biggest concern. But for a smaller deployment of AI that we have in the next 2 years.
Tesla is a very, very bad example or a very good example. Their choice of Tesla is a very specific case, by the way. I'm glad you brought that up. Tesla's technology, what they're using is basically vision and deep learning. So literally, you can have the coyote and the roadrunner scenario where car is driving. You have the road painted in front of it. The camera will not detect it and it'll go through, but a LiDAR would. So a more reasonable company like Waymo would employ radars, which cost more money, but actually works. So this would be a very good example of bad use of technology or misuse of technology or safety.
I think last month there was this independent testing of Chinese vehicles for safety, and Tesla actually won most of the Chinese really sort of top Chinese brands, but that use LiDAR most of the time. There were edge cases or whatever, but Tesla's, I think it was just better compute, better algorithms underneath. But I can certainly see the limitation of what you're saying. Does Pakistan need its own chip industry?
No. We are very, very, very far from clean room and getting, just getting that infrastructure in place. Pakistan, unfortunately, is not even close to that ballpark. US cannot have it. There is a reason why TSMC is where it is. Geography still is a big concern. Just going from just getting the silicon wafers in a certain place and getting it in time to the right place and having that workforce that can do that. We would not be. We're not at all competitive in that space.
100% agree.
And what about data centers? So there are security concerns. Should Pakistan be investing in data centers?
Definitely.
And sort of what level of services, or what are the type of things that you would want to reside in a Pakistani data center?
I think data about our citizens, data about our defensive structures, about a lot of our data that does not belong outside Pakistan. I mean, there's a reason why countries have these laws of data security, and Pakistan does need it. We don't need it for necessarily for consumer websites, and if you want to store your data for how many widgets you're selling online or whatever, it doesn't really matter whether it's in Singapore or wherever. But anything that's private data, that's our medical data, that's our spending patterns, all of those things, that they belong to Pakistan.
And it has good economical thing too. Like if somebody wants to, like not small people, but our big boys, if they want to invest, it's a very good use case of it.
Okay. So the last question, my favorite daydreaming is to imagine myself as benevolent dictator for one day. What would you do to set us up for a better AI future if you could create key changes in one day?
Oh, wow.
Or pick one policy that you'd change in Pakistan to set us up for success.
Education.
हाँ, पाकिस्तान का मसला तो एजुकेशन ही है, लेकिन ओवरऑल वर्ल्ड की बात भी कर लें तो आई वुड कमर्शलाइज न्यूक्लियर फ्यूजन and make laws to commercialize that. It will have some Chernobyl kind of events, but I am, because I'm a dictator, I personally believe in the overall progress of humanity than one or two events, and it's the catastrophe, it's the casualty that will happen for the greater good of humanity.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was very helpful.